What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and bear with me throughout the entire video if possible. We have quite a bit to dissect in regards to Lee Ross, what this means for Call of Duty 2020, and what the situation is over at Treyarch Studios. So before we jump into that, be sure to check out my video from yesterday where we talked about some damning information that proves that there is a pretty big coincidence going on here, that the two new Treyarch events happen to end on a day which is very relevant to American history in regards to Vietnam and the Cold War. So that could actually be either a title or gameplay reveal for Treyarch's next game. That video is of course linked down below in the description. But yesterday when I was on the Richtofen's Journal podcast with my good buddies Zazu, Perka, Fajardi, and Revive, the news broke that Lee Ross has left Treyarch, but he's also left Activision. And when I saw this, I was pretty upset about it because obviously Lee Ross is a phenomenal person, and it was pretty cool news when we heard that he had moved over to Treyarch. He actually announced that he was working over at Treyarch shortly after the release of Black Ops 4, and I was optimistic about what the future could hold in regards to his involvement in zombies. But as we all know, his involvement in Black Ops 4 had little to do with the actual zombies mode. Instead, he was put in charge of the zombies Easter eggs and lore inside of Blackout, so close enough to his expertise, I would say, but he was still working primarily on Blackout and never worked much on the actual zombies mode in Black Ops 4. So when this news broke, obviously you see a lot of people in the community saying, oh, zombies is dead, I have no hope for Black Ops 5, I'm not even gonna buy the game. And I honestly saw this coming, right? You know, with the Blundell news that came out a couple of months ago, right, it didn't shock me too much because thanks to verified insiders, we kind of knew that Blundell had stepped away from Treyarch after the release of Ancient Evil and was working on other projects with Activision shortly after that and didn't have much involvement in DLC 3 or 4, right? Activision did damage control, I think, before the release of Tag, just to keep people optimistic about the Black Ops 4 DLC season, not to make them panic, so they kind of kept that news under wraps until after Black Ops 4 season was over, which was understandable, but it of course hit a little bit differently when we saw the farewell message from Blundell posted on Treyarch's Twitter, and then we saw this news late last night, which I also didn't expect, right? Lee Ross is leaving Activision and is pursuing other projects. What those projects are, we just don't know, but this is the problem now, right? People saw that Lee Ross has left, they'll claim that zombies probably isn't even in Black Ops 5 now, and they're setting themselves up for disappointment. And what I mean by that is Black Ops 5 will come out, right? It'll have zombies, and they'll probably play it and say, oh, Lee Ross could have done it better. But here's the thing about that. Lee Ross, for all we know, wasn't even working on zombies for Call of Duty 2020. We have no idea what he was working on. And the thing about that too is, like, maybe they were working on zombies, right? Maybe Lee Ross was involved in zombies in some way, and, you know, stuff went south, he wasn't a fan of it and dipped. The other side of things could be maybe he wasn't put to work on zombies and was put to work on something else, and he just wasn't passionate about that, right? Maybe he wants to work on zombies to some extent, and they just didn't let him do that. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna, you know, take my expertise somewhere else. I'm gonna pursue a different passion and go in a different direction. Maybe that was the case, right? For all we know, he could have been working on zombies. Maybe it sucked and he stepped away. Maybe the crunch time was too stressful since the game has to come out, you know, at some point this fall. Who knows what the truth is, and we'll never know what the truth actually was in regards to Lee Ross's departure from Treyarch. We just know that he was the director of zombies at Infinity Ward and then left to work with Treyarch and was literally working all on Blackout and some zombie stuff in Blackout. That's all we know for a fact based on his LinkedIn and based on verified information. But people are jumping the gun way too quickly thinking that, you know, Lee Ross was the only saving grace for Call of Duty 2020 zombies. And the thing about that too is when it comes to who will direct zombies in Call of Duty 2020, I honestly think, you know, that position will go to a veteran who's been at Treyarch for a number of years, since World at War. You have Danny Donahoe, who's I think a senior producer. You have Mark Maestas, who goes by Hyena on Twitter. They've been there for so damn long. So if anybody is a viable candidate for that position, it's somebody that's been there and knows Treyarch that well. You know, if Lee Ross was director, though, I would not have been disappointed at all because I know he knows how to balance gameplay and story pretty damn well. So I would have given him a shot. I would not have minded it one bit, but thinking realistically about this, right, at least from a business perspective, I just don't think Lee Ross was going to be the director. Now, could he have been involved in zombies in some way? Absolutely. But then there's another topic too, right? People assuming that, you know, zombies just isn't going to be in Call of Duty 2020. And here's the thing, right? Without even talking about leaks or verified information, right? I just don't see a Treyarch game releasing without zombies. That's just their thing. It's their baby. However, to play devil's advocate, looking at the recent Activision investors call, right, with what Activision was talking about when it comes to Modern Warfare and Warzone, right, the bundles and just the numbers are through the roof, extremely successful, and just the microtransactions and the potential for them in Battle Royale and in multiplayer is probably a lot more profitable than microtransactions in a zombies mode. So is it possible that Activision's like, yeah, we're not going to waste millions working on a zombies mode anymore, right? You know, it's just better to go with Battle Royale and multiplayer. Sure, that's possible, but I just don't see them having the balls to say, yeah, we're releasing a Treyarch game and it's not going to have zombies, especially after how massive Black Ops 3 is. People forget that Zombies Chronicles still is the best-selling map pack in PlayStation history, so zombies sells. If they find a way to rework the microtransaction system in zombies so that maybe it's close to being as profitable as the microtransactions in Warzone of some sort, then I think it'll show them some more success, right? Should they make zombies free to play? Maybe, but I think it'll still be a loss for them if they do that. So you can lock zombie maps behind the paywall, but at least have, you know, a fair microtransaction system alongside that if they're going to do one at all. You know, think of something to, you know, raise the numbers and success of a zombies mode. But if it makes you guys feel any better about Call of Duty 2020 Zombies, I have the latest leaks and intel linked down below in the description. A dual commentary between the Gaming Revolution and myself, all of the zombies information that we've heard from verified insiders who are also responsible for leaking all of Modern Warfare and Call of Duty Warzone, right? Could all of that be in development and then get scrapped at the last second? Sure, anything's possible, but as of right now, Zombies is coming. We have a lot of new experiences coming through for the zombie season, and we have the Victus remakes still in development and going for Call of Duty 2020 as well. And the Gaming Revolution is also going to upload his version of that dual commentary on his channel later today as well. Here's what keeps me optimistic too, right? You know, based on leaks now, Treyarch is in charge of campaign and zombies for Call of Duty 2020, while Sledgehammer and Raven are leading the multiplayer, right? Things could change, a subject to change. I totally understand that, but, you know, I'm really excited to see, you know, what Treyarch could do if they have more time to focus solely on campaign and zombies and not the multiplayer, because a lot more time and budget can go into the zombies mode, new iteration of zombies, right? I think Activision gave zombies a break this year because of how Black Ops 4 Zombies underperformed, which I totally get from a business standpoint. Give the mode a break, try to bring it back and rejuvenate it in Call of Duty 2020 and see how it goes from there. One thing I have said though is that if Call of Duty 2020 Zombies doesn't do well, I do think at that point the mode is going to be done, right? They don't want to have two Treyarch quote-unquote flops in a row. And Black Ops 4 didn't flop, it actually outsold Black Ops 3, but what I mean by flop is the community reception to the mode itself. But Lee Ross isn't the answer to Call of Duty 2020 Zombies' success, right? Could he have been a great director? Absolutely, but people just assuming that the mode is dead because he's no longer at Treyarch are just setting themselves up for the same toxicity and the same drama that we saw during Black Ops 4. People are going to buy the game, right? Even if they say they aren't right now, they're still going to buy it. They're going to have a bad taste in their mouth because Lee Ross isn't working on zombies, and then, you know, they'll just go from there and they'll just continue hating on COD 2020 Zombies. Now, an example I made, or an analogy I should say, as of yesterday, was that think of the same game releasing, right? You have Call of Duty 2020 Zombies directed by Lee Ross, and then 2020 Zombies not directed by Lee Ross. Pretend they're the same game for a second. I promise you there will be people who play it and will simply hate on it simply because it wasn't made by Lee Ross. But then if Lee Ross had directed the same experience, they would praise it. It's all about just the sheep mentality, right? Just, you know, being followers and not leaders. It's really unfortunate to see the Call of Duty community go through this phase again, but I'm not surprised, right? And people are even, you know, waking up a little bit and saying, wait a second, Lee Ross, who was working on Blackout during Black Ops 4, leaves Treyarch, and all of a sudden Zombies is dead for Black Ops 5. Like, are we missing something? And no, we're not missing anything, right? It's like, just put two and two together. Just do that, right? You know, could he have been working on Zombies? Absolutely. But was he absolutely doing that? We just don't know. People also need to remember that the development behind Call of Duty 2020 is already pretty damn complicated, right? You have Treyarch leading the project, Sledgehammer and Raven working under them as support studios, so how does everybody get managed, right? Without Blackout in COD 2020, where does Lee Ross go? What does David Vonderhaar work on, right? Do they lead other developers who work from different companies, right? From Sledgehammer and Raven? You know, what happens with that? And maybe Lee Ross just wasn't digging that, and he just didn't feel like that's a project that he wanted to work on, right? He didn't feel like, you know, all of his potential was being used in the project. He felt like maybe he was was kind of being overshadowed, or he wasn't able to have creative control like he feels he should. You know, who knows what the deal was, but bottom line is the game sounds complicated already. There's a lot of people working on it, so I wouldn't doubt that, you know, it's a very stressful time. You know, all these shuffles in development teams and shuffles in management, new leadership, people leaving, people coming in. It's probably a very hectic environment working on a AAA game for Activision that not only is being worked on for, what, a year and a half, but then you have COVID-19, which is causing more issues, people working from home remotely. You know, there's so many problems, you know, in this mixed bag of Call of Duty 2020. Now in the background we have some phenomenal Alcatraz Portals gameplay. I honestly think Alcatraz Portals is one of Lee Ross's highlights while he worked over at Treyarch. Honestly, it's just phenomenal to see the lore and the Easter eggs and the atmosphere of Alcatraz being put into a Battle Royale map. It's phenomenal. He had a big part to play in making that happen, so round of applause to Lee for all of his work during the Black Ops 4 season, and I hope he does great things wherever he goes next. But to wrap all of this up, if Lee Ross had worked on zombies during the Black Ops 4 season, then I would understand a lot of people who are currently upset about this. But if there's anybody you should be worried about, it's Craig Houston, because if he leaves, then I would understand all of the tears, because he makes just about everything happen, right? All of the rich storyline, all of the ciphers, all of the, you know, foreshadowing. If he leaves, then there's an issue, right? Because he's actually been working on zombies since, I believe it's probably even the World at War days. Now the thing is too, people are wondering, well, since there isn't a Blackout in COD 2020 that we know of, what could Lee Ross have been working on for this game, right? And that's the golden question. We don't know. We're never going to know that. It could have been multiplayer, it could have been campaign, it could have been a mode that we don't know about yet, and maybe he just wasn't passionate about that, and he said, yeah, I'm not really digging it, you know, I only want to work on something I'm passionate about, so he left, and I fully respect that. Maybe it was a zombies mode that he was working on, he also didn't like the direction they were going in, so he left. It could be one of two things, we just don't know. But people assuming that COD 2020 Zombies is dead, they're just not helping the community at all, right? And people always talk about how bad Black Ops 4 is and this and that, but they probably didn't give the game a chance, and it seems like people are following that same mindset this time, not going to be giving COD 2020 Zombies a chance because their favorite developer isn't leading the project. Now, I already did an Infinite Warfare Zombies marathon a couple of months ago. We actually beat every single map on stream, including Mephistopheles, completed the entire Super Easter egg. It was pretty fun. I found it enjoyable with friends. I'll have that link down below in the description in case you guys are interested in checking that out. But to honor Lee Ross, I thought it was even better to honor him by playing his most recent work, which is, of course, Alcatraz Portals within Blackout. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave all your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you guys think about Lee Ross? What do you think about the clickbait and the fake news saying that Zombies is dead, saying that a Zombies developer left Treyarch, even though he was working on Blackout throughout all of Black Ops 4? I'll keep you guys updated with the latest and greatest Call of Duty 2020 news and information. Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everyone.